Recording. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm back with the Olivia, and we're gonna talk about week 7. Olivia wasn't there, so I'm
I was
gonna
not.
do most of the
Have a
talking.
job.
I'm gonna do most of the talking, and she's gonna do the reacting. Um,
Even though I know what happens.
yeah, it's okay. You're gonna pretend like you haven't. We're so good at doing that. But Dominic is head of household, and he comes in and he talks with George about their plan, and they're both pretty much like, it doesn't matter really who goes as long as George is kept off the block. That's all they really need. Anyone else going is good for their game, and they're definitely right on that front. I think as long as George stays, it would be a successful HOH for Dominic. Um, but they kind of discuss of what the best scenario for them would be, and they decide that Landry is the person that they want to target because of her comp abilities. Um, and then Masterify is kind of their secondary targets. And Dominic's like, I'm 100% putting Masterify at first just because of the whole thing that happened with last week with Masterify nominating both of them and then leaving them out of the plan. It just made the most sense for him to nominate Masterify directly. Um,
Man, I cannot wait to talk more about Masterfy.
Masterify, sure. His
Hey,
last,
Masterfy.
I, his last HOH was, I don't know why he did what he did, and
It. He made decisions.
yeah, and he's facing the
Things
consequences for
happened.
them this session. Um, but yeah, and then Dominic then talks to Oliver next. And Oliver doesn't really pitch of why he should be safe, but pitches why the others should go up. He says that Landry should be the main target because Landry is a comp beast, as she's shown before. And Dominic's like, yeah, I'm going after Landry. She's the main target. We're on the same page. Oliver also mentions he's okay. He understands if they target Masterify because of what happened last week. So even Oliver is like, what the hell was Masterify doing last week? Um, so yeah, he's kind of like, that's what Oliver says. And then we do their zings. Cade did not record the reactions for
Fucking
you.
Cade. I told him like an hour before the session I'm not gonna be there, and I was really excited for Zingbot. Fucking record their reactions for me because he's recorded clips before, and he was like, okay. And then I get home and he's like, I didn't record it. Oh my gosh. Lost footage.
Lost media. But they laughed, they
I'm
punched
not mad.
Zingbot. Um and then they continue talking. And Masterify talks, not Masterify, Dominic talks to Masterify next, I believe. Um and Masterify, Dominic tells Masterify straight up, "You're going on the block." Which Masterify's like, "Okay, sure."
Definitely a different approach than Masterfy took
Yeah.
last week.
Uh and Dominic, kind of just explains why. It was like, you left us out of the plan last week and you put us in danger, blah blah blah. So Masterfy really can't fight against it. He can only go like, yeah, makes sense. But his pitch is just, as long as me and Oliver aren't on the block together, is what he really pitches hard for.
He said that?
Yeah, that's what he said. And if I was Dominic, I would be looking at that and raising my eyebrow. I'd be like,
What? And what did Dominic do with that? Was he
nothing.
raising an eyebrow?
No. To be fair,
What the fuck
Dominic.
is wrong with these people?
To be fair, Dominic is in an alliance with Oliver and Masterfy called the Triple Riders. And so that was kind of Masterfy's pitch of like, the Triple Riders need to make it to the end. So like, as long as we're not on the block together, was kind of what he was saying. And then he also like, does do a settle thing of, I don't think the jury would vote for me in the end. So if you do want to keep me, I think that's why you should, because the jury is kind of either against me or a huge question mark. So it would be
Well,
beneficial for you to keep
you got one thing right,
me.
Master. You got one thing right.
Yeah, that is very true. And I have some more opinions on that and how it relates to other house guests later, but we'll get to that. And then it's Landry's turn, and Landry makes a really, really good pitch here of target Oliver. Oliver has never been nominated. He's shown to be fairly decent at competitions, and like he's going to use never being nominated as a boost for his resume. And if you let him go past this week without being nominated again, like that's just you're
My queen. My queen.
she's like
I love her.
you're just like handing Oliver all these reasons why they should vote for him in the end. So like don't you need to cut him now, um while you get have the chance. And Dominic's like after to himself, he's like, Landry makes real good points, like she's smart. And I feel bad for doing this because she's right, but I'm nominating Landry. And Dominic's kind of internal reasoning is that he still thinks Landry and Masterfy are a duo from last week, which I don't like. They clearly presented themselves as a duo, but to me it was kind of
Hmm.
always obvious they were using each other and that this wasn't
Hmm.
like a long term thing. I'm surprised that the others didn't catch on to that, and that especially
So,
Dominic, like he should realize that Masterfy and Oliver are the real duo here, not
mhm.
Masterfy and Landry. So
Yeah, I guess one element of Masterfy's plan worked from
yeah.
last week. 'Cause I know he was trying, him and Landry were trying to make themselves seem like a duo.
Hmm.
But I know we've talked about this before, but it's so obvious to us who are duos, and it's just like weird to see people in the house not realize that people like Dominic and George are dangerous and Masterfy and Oliver are dangerous.
Hmm.
I don't know. That's been
Yeah.
a theme this season of
Yeah.
just letting duos chill out.
Yeah, very interesting. But yeah, Dominic didn't want to keep Landry off the block because he was like, Landry has a good chance at winning veto, and if she wins it, he just didn't want her using it on Masterfied to get Dominic out or to get George up. But clearly, Landry was very going hard at Oliver, so I don't think that would have been necessarily a concern for Dominic if he kept Landry off the block and kept and put Oliver up. Um, but that's what he goes with. He's reiterates his reasoning of Masterfy of what happened last week, and then he's kind of just like, "Sorry, Landry, I had to pick someone." And then we go into veto, and it comes down to Landry and Oliver, which has kind of been a theme during this end game. Um, and I can see that theme continuing. And Landry pulls out the win. She what she does it's Otev. And so what she does is that she starts stockpiling books. Instead of going right for her platform like the others, she takes some time to go through the barrels and find books that she doesn't have yet, and then grab them and put them in her stash. Um, and so then when it comes to the future questions, she just looks through her stash and goes right back up without
You know
having
what?
to
That's
explore.
queen shit. I know
Yeah.
that's right.
I
Go
am
for
now
Landry.
I am now going to introduce a rule in future seasons that you could only carry one book, because that
Okay.
was an
You know what?
OP
Fair.
strategy. But Landry was very clever for doing that, so I
I'm
can't.
surprised nobody did that last season.
Yeah, can't fault her because it wasn't against the rules. So, um, but yeah, Landry pulls out a win. Um, and then Dominic quickly goes to Landry. He's like, "I'm sorry, but like you were never the target. It was always Master Fire." Uh, um,
You and I
which
lie.
right, which isn't true, but he set up that lie very well because he was always very open to everyone that I'm nominating Master Fi. So it made sense. And then he's like, I would want to get Landry's like, who's the replacement nominee gonna be? And Dominic's like, probably Oliver. You made really good points of what your pitch was, so I'm nominating Oliver. He paints it as if like Landry convinced him that he should nominate Oliver versus I'm not nominating my duo George, um, which is smart of him. Um, but he's like, but I want Masterfied to go. Like Masterfied's the target, and Landry's like, okay. I was very shocked when you nominated me, but I will follow through with your wishes and get out Masterfy, which was a lie on Landry's part, doing what she does best. But this time it actually almost works because she starts working on George of we need to get out Oliver, and starts doing a similar pitch to Dominic of he's never been nominated. He's like, as we've seen in OTEV, he's really good at competitions. He was close to winning. Like, he has everyone's jury vote. He has a good chance at winning himself to the end. Like, we need to get out Oliver. And George was seriously contemplating flipping on Dominic to get out Oliver. Um, and honestly, I think it would have been smarter for George to keep Masterfy. As we said, Masterfy has kind of burned his bridges with a lot of the jury members, and George really needs people, needs jury votes because he has not built his own resume.
No,
So
not
uh,
at all.
making a move like this, flipping on Dominic, that will kind of help sever maybe his like connection with Dominic, being viewed as just an extension of Dominic, that could like really help paint him out. And then if he helps getting out Landry, as with a big comp threat, and then sits next to Masterfy, that could be maybe pretty good for George, and could have been a scenario where George could have maybe pulled out a win in a situation where it's very hard for George to win this game at
Instead
this
of
point.
being guaranteed second place, like I still think he is.
Yeah. um, but after that, while that whole Landry George thing is happening, Dominic's talking to Oliver, and Oliver's kind of pitch is you should keep me off the block, because they discuss that Masterfy is the target no matter what, so it doesn't matter. He's like, but here's why you should keep me off the block if I'm not the target, and that's my target on my back is going to grow bigger if I've never been nominated, and nobody will want to like bring me any farther if I've never been nominated. And so going into next week, that will make me the main target over you, which was a decent pitch.
I mean, it's he's doing what he can, but
Yeah.
when you're talking about a growing target,
Yeah,
it doesn't have that much time to grow. Like
exactly.
about to be in Final Four.
Yeah.
If there's a time to get out of big target, it's right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. But yeah, he did what he could, but he still got nominated. Dominic was not going to nominate George. And
Well,
then
no.
yeah.
Wait, 1 second. If he did nominate George, like in an alternate universe, do you think there was any chance of him getting sent home or no?
No, because everyone wants to bring George with them to final two. So
Yeah, that makes sense. So it just would have been the same outcome.
yeah. And so yeah, Oliver's nominated, and then George goes to Dominic, and Dominic's like, I don't think I need to talk to you, but I figured, I should, just to, say I talked to everybody. And George is like, well, Landry just made a really good pitch to me of why we should get out Oliver, and I kind of agree with her and all this. And Dominic puts a stop to that immediately by saying, Landry tried to get you out last week, tried to flip the vote to keep Taylor and get you out, so you should not trust a thing she says. Dominic shut that down real
Well,
fucking quick.
Dominic, that was last week. This is this week.
Right?
Things change. Things change.
Right? And so George is very quickly like, oh, okay then, won't trust her and we'll go with you instead. Which I was like, I mean, Dominic's very right, and Landry tried to do that, but I feel like that has no bearing in what Landry's saying and doing now. Like, how is Landry
That's what I was
trying?
trying to say.
Yeah, like, just because Landry tried to keep Taylor last week has no bearing in her trying to get out Oliver this week. It doesn't make her point mute. So yeah, Dominic's like,
Yeah.
okay.
And it sounds like Dominic kind of just like has tunnel vision for Masterfy after
Yeah.
what happened last week, and I get it totally,
Mhm.
but I feel like George was cooking for a second,
Yeah.
and Dominic just
Well,
did not want to let
Landry,
him, and then
Landry
George
was
just
the
kind
true.
of laid down and died.
Landry was the true person who
Well,
was cooking, to be
okay,
honest.
listen, okay, but if there's any moment where I can give George a little bit of credit, I'm going to, because man gives us nothing 99% of the time.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say George was cooking.
Yeah, George was really, really spiraling at the end of this week of like, I'm not gonna win. There's no chance of me winning, which I like.
Oh, no.
Yeah, which I hate to see him like spiral about it. He was like really spiral. Like, I was listening into a call with Dominic and George was really spiraling. He was like devastated. He was like, "What's even the point anymore? Like, I have no chance at winning." I'm like, "Damn, I hate to see you so down on yourself, but
Okay,
it is kind
yeah,
of
like I
true."
feel bad for him, but he had all season. I feel like every single one of these podcast episodes, you and me are talking about George could have done this to make himself like in a better position and
Yeah.
put this on his resume, but he didn't.
Hmm.
So he's had so many opportunities and he just hasn't. Like,
Yeah, I feel like George feels like he's kind of blaming it on the fact that he's never won a competition. He's never won power, but you
you
don't
don't need
have
to.
exactly. You don't need to make big moves to like work behind the scenes. We've seen plenty of people make their biggest moves outside of power when they don't have it.
Hmm.
Um,
Dr. Will never won a comp. Come
right?
on,
Uh,
George, you could be Dr. Will.
so I think George could have done. George started off with a pretty strong social game, and he could have used that to his advantage to do a lot of manipulating and floating and such. I mean, Masterfy and Oliver were doing it for a lot of the game before they won power, and then when they did, that helped their game a lot. But they didn't need to. If anything, Masterfy winning power destroyed his game. It would have been more
100%.
right. It would have been more beneficial for him to not win power. So George just never took the opportunity and just kind of stayed in the shadows, which is unfortunate. But I mean, it guaranteed him second place at least. He's making it to
He can
finale
join the
night.
club. He can join the second place club.
Exactly. But yeah, at this point, everyone wants to bring George to the final two because like he's an easy win. So yeah, but yeah, Dominic shuts down this rebellion real quick. And George is still kind of lying to Landry, being like, "Yeah, I'm with you. Let's get out Oliver." But then the vote comes out 1-1. Um,
Why? What?
yeah.
What was the point? What was the reason?
I guess he just didn't want to get face Landry's wrath. I guess I don't know. Um,
Oh my god, George. That would piss me the fuck off. I mean, I don't know. I guess that kind of sets up a little bit of bad blood between Oliver and Landry
yeah,
going forward, but
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's what George was trying to do or if he just got lazy or scared.
Probably scared. I think scared is the correct thing. Um, but yeah, the Oliver's whole thing is like, yeah, I'm okay with being nominated. I understand if you do. Like, it totally makes sense too. As long as I stay, I don't care. You know. He's like, it's probably gonna be a tiebreaker. So as long as you cast that vote in my favor, I'm fine with going up. And then
Yeah.
yeah.
And did George like promise Landry that he was going to vote out Oliver or was he
Um,
just like let me think about it?
don't know. I wasn't there exactly for the conversation. It was kind of third hand. But I think he was kind of just like hearing her out and being like, "Yeah, I agree with you." I don't think he ever
Mhm.
explicitly said that he was going to do that, but he was definitely like, "I agree with what you're saying."
But was Landry under the impression that George was going to be voting with her?
100%. Um,
Girl. Oh my god, that would piss me off.
um, but yeah, vote comes out. It's 1-1. First tie of the season after like a season of unanimous votes. We have a tie right at the end. And Dominic breaks it, voting out Masterfy. Um, and I kind of keep going back and forth of what would have been better for Dominic's game, Masterfy or Oliver. Because I think if Masterfy was still in the game, I think he would still try to be playing the middle even this far late. I think he would be.
Playing the middle in Final Four is wild.
I
That
think,
is the most Master
yeah,
Fi thing I've ever heard.
I think he would be floating between Landry and then the duo of Dominic and George, and be kind of playing those two and just kind of go wherever the power lands, um, which could be dangerous for them. And Masterfy would probably be. I don't know what Masterfy would do. This is very theoretical and doesn't matter because Masterfy's gone. But he could have maybe targeted George and Dominic because they're a duo versus Landry. Maybe he would have targeted Landry because she's a comp threat. Who knows? But versus Oliver, who is much better at competitions, and has a good resume on his hands that he's at this point the probably front runner to win. Um, but he is on thoroughly on Dominic and George's side and is very obviously targeting Landry versus Master Fi's more wishy-washy gameplay. So it's hard to say of which one would have been more beneficial, but at the end of the day, Master Fi being wishy-washy and floating between everyone caught up to him. It's what ultimately got him evicted this week, because
You know,
Oliver was more thoroughly with the other two.
I wasn't there for the session, but when I was driving home from work, I was able to join the call like right after Master Fi got evicted, and he said something like he was spiraling. He was like, "No, this wasn't supposed to happen." And then he said, "I think something went wrong with my HOH, but I'm not sure what yet."
And that problem is not going after George and not George and George and Dominic, and just completely leaving them out of the loop. Um,
I
yeah,
mean, could have still gone after Taylor and survived. It wasn't the best move. He still could have gone after Taylor and survived, but it
if
was just the
yeah,
weird way he handled it
yeah,
that just made everybody mad at him.
yeah. I think if he was more front and honest with George and Dominic, they would have definitely respected that more. But he hid it until the
Yeah.
very last second, and so everyone was spewing these lies towards them. So they were obviously very confused on what Master Five's true intentions were. Um,
That's got to be the most unsuccessful HOH of the season.
yeah, because yeah, that's ultimately what got him in this position. Yeah, but then Oliver is our next HOH, so he's guaranteed final three. Which again makes me question: was keeping Oliver the right move for Dominic and George, or did they just kind of hand him another pass? They gave him a pass to the finale at this point, and was that is this going to be his chance to win? Did they just give him that
And yeah,
scenario?
I would. I mean, they knew the chances of Oliver winning the final four HOH, which means going against him in the final three HOH. And if I were them, I would much rather want to go against Masterfi in the final three than Oliver.
Yeah,
So who
yeah.
knows if they made the right decision?
Yeah, we'll see in due time. But once again, Landry is kind of the main target from everyone because she's a comp beast. She has a great underdog story. So it's looking like Landry's gonna go home unless she wins veto. So, um, it was very funny. George fell pretty quickly, into the competition. Um,
Was it the ladders one, the
yeah,
TJ one?
yeah, the latter one. Um, I keep thinking about how close you and TJ were to dropping. Like TJ dropped 0.2 seconds after you. It was
You
crazy.
can't, Crow, you can't break this up. I'm gonna make the episode about all the different timelines that are out there. Season one of me evicting TJ.
Oh my god.
We can't go on this tangent.
But it was not as close this one. Landry fell after, and she kind of rage quit. I think she kind of like she had herself muted the whole comp. She was focused in.
Just
Um,
like TJ.
yeah, and then the minute she fell, she kind of just left the call for a second and was like, um,
I get it. I
yeah.
get it. I wanted to do that, and I had to act all happy, like, oh, congrats, TJ, yay, I'm so happy.
But yeah, I think she very much sees the writing on the wall that she is clearly the target, especially after Dominic and George flipped on her and did not vote out Oliver. And clearly Oliver would now know that Landry tried to get him out, so Landry's very like much
Yeah.
probably sees that she's screwed unless she wins
I
safety.
mean, I get Oliver wanting to go after Landry. You know, she's a big target, and obviously she voted him out. But at the same time, I'm wondering like how Oliver feels about going into Final Three with a very obvious duo. You
I
know.
think that getting out Landry is the smartest move for Oliver because I think Landry's the only person who can really beat Oliver in a competition. I think he has a better
Hmm.
chance at beating Dominic or George in a competition. And at this point, everyone's going to take George to the final two. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like everyone's in a duo with George at this point. Um, so yeah, usually I'd be right of like you kind of need to consider who's more likely to bring you to final two, but at this point, no one's bringing Oliver to final two. He has to bring himself there.
Yeah.
So taking out the person who's more likely to beat him in a competition is, I think, the smarter move for him. Plus, I think if he ends up somehow Dominic wins and takes Oliver for some reason, I think he can still end up beating Dominic. I think it would be a very close battle between the two, but I think Oliver has a strong resume and strong supporters in the group. Taylor really likes Oliver. Masterfy likes Oliver. Um, and Taylor is kind of pissed at Dominic after everything that happened between them. Um,
Kind of, sorta.
and Spencer is also starting to harbor the same resentment towards them because of Taylor's influence in the jury. So,
Forgot all about Spencer.
yeah. But yeah, that's a pretty straightforward week. We did have not much running around and spiraling between house guests because there's less of them. But Landry did try to pull off a pretty good game move. Unfortunate that it didn't go through. That seems to
And
be a
that's probably
theme.
gonna be her downfall.
Yeah, it seems to be a theme with Landry, trying to pull off some sort
It
of
is.
sneaky lie, and then it just doesn't go through.
And it's always disappointing.
Right? Yeah,
What
but
could have been?
um, if anyone can pull out a clutch veto win at this point, it's Landry. Taylor's gone, so
Definitely.
Landry can pull off the clutch veto win. Um, we'll see if she can
I
pull it off.
mean, not that I have host bias or anything, but I'm definitely rooting for her.
I think it would be a wild story.
And then we could finally see George and Dominic be split up. Like,
Right.
iconic.
Well, I kind of just want to see George go because
Mhm.
it's obvious that he's gonna get final two at this point. So I want to,
Mhm.
but I mean, no one's gonna get out George at this point. They'd be dumb
No.
to. Um,
Oh
if
my god,
only.
Dominic snubbed at Final Four.
My God.
Imagine.
Yeah, if Landry wins veto, that's who's going at this point, Dominic.
Mhm.
So, it's one of them two. And I think any of those two going, they have a strong chance at winning, and so it'll be disappointing to see either of them go. But um, I'm very excited to see what happens. Yeah, this was, I think, a shorter episode, a shorter week, but final five, not as much happens. It's pretty cut and dry at this point. It's just win power to keep yourself safe. So not as much scheming
Basically.
going on. We also don't have someone crying in the HOH room and then someone panicking in their bathroom trying to decide who to evict with after they win veto.
Listen, that was a big moment for me.
um,
I literally spent 5 minutes in my bathroom floor, like, just like
I don't.
coping.
I don't think that will happen this final four in this eviction. I think it will pretty much be Landry. It'll either be Landry winning veto and evicting Dominic, or anyone else evicting Landry. So pretty straightforward week this week, and well, almost straightforward week this week. And then will be a pretty straightforward week next week. We're in the end game now, so I'm very excited to see who wins. Next
Me
week,
too.
we're going to talk about the final three and kind of dissect their games a little bit. And hopefully, we'll have a special guest with us. Cross our fingers.
I
We'll
wonder
see.
who that will be. I have no idea.
The Dr. Will himself, actually.
Yeah. Dr. Will Roundtable with the
Exactly.
Aether Big Brother.
Exactly. And then, I'm excited for the jury roundtable. Anyways,
Oh my god. You have to do that on a day I'm not working. Please.
I hope so. But yeah, that's everything from us for now. We will see you next week when we have our final three. Peace out, everybody.